If you're feeling whiplash from being launched back into your workplace, you're not alone. If you're a business owner with Captain Morgan in your coffee mug during a Zoom meeting, you're not alone. Life and business as usual have a large asterisk around usual, but no clear definition. My next guest is the Vice President of Public Relations for Sunny 505, a nationwide communications firm. She's going to share some workplace predictions, how we can make meeting up meaningful, and weird things that are now normal. Survivor of a dozen political campaigns, published author, left shoe first for good luck, Jamie Dickerman.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad that you came. I kind of feel like you are the soccer goalie right now. I know you played basketball, but I played soccer, so I only know what I know. But you know, as the soccer goalie, you kind of see what's happening on the field and you see the patterns that are emerging and you kind of see like, okay, that's the next move. Oh, not anymore. You missed your opening. Now that's the next move. I feel like that's what you are right now for the business world because of working with all your clients.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, what you were talking about, seeing it change and seeing how the outlook overall is changing is something that's really crazy to watch right now. If we would have looked 2 months back, no one's predictions for 2020 were going to be anything close to what's happening. And even, you know, looking back, early March, early April, looking at those, the outlook is changing constantly. So absolutely, it's spot on. We're working on trying to find ways where people can be flexible and really adapt to this. It's just an ever unfolding situation.
Businesses normally plan a couple of quarters out and sometimes even a whole year in areas like advertising, obviously budgeting, and maybe even like, product development or those sorts of things. Has this shortened the planning projections of companies? Instead of planning a year out, they're planning months or weeks out?
You know, somewhat. I know for some of our clients, we are working on fiscal year 21 projections, which will cover all of the next fiscal year. But even in that, that's flexible. And that has plans that kind of have some contingencies built in. I think that planning farther ahead is a really good thing, but kind of that interim plan is something that's a little harder to nail down. So in that interim plan, you have to do things, you know, a month out, a quarter out, and just look at those incrementally for things as they're changing. Because what we're seeing, you know, even this month is going to be completely different next month. So I think that planning short term definitely needs to be broken up a little bit. And planning long term, definitely go ahead, plan with the knowledge that it's going to be a long time before we get back to a normal. And it's probably going to be more of a new normal for a really long time. So, yeah. I mean, having those contingencies is really important, I think.
Normal with heavy air quotes.
Yes.
What are some of the things that were not normal at all that now are, oh, yep, we do that. That's typical.
Oh, so many things. I think probably the biggest one is the fact that we are, and I know everyone is, now inviting our clients into our home and inviting our coworkers into our home via Zoom. And, you know, we're getting to see everyone's artwork. We're getting to see everyone's kids. We're getting to see everyone's pets. And it really adds this layer of just this humanity to all of everything that we do. I mean, you know, we work really hard to develop those meaningful connections, but it's going a step further to places that we wouldn't normally connect. So it's really, you know, bringing clients and coworkers into your home, I think is probably the biggest new normal thing in the workplace.
Yeah, I would agree. What are some of the pros and cons of that?
I think that it really does add that human contact element. It's not the same as, you know, a hug or a handshake or sitting face to face with someone, but it really does add a different element than a conference call. And in a lot of ways, I think it's helpful for people because it also adds an element of having to pay attention. Yes. I know we've all had those people that when you're on a conference call and you start calling their name to ask them a question, and all of a sudden they're not really paying attention. They're not really there. They've kind of zoned out. Where I think, you know, Zoom or Skype or Google Hangouts or whatever keeps you a little bit more connected. You kind of have to be. So I think that's one of the benefits for sure, but it also does add that human element in a time where things do feel so distant. For some, life has gone on like normal, but for a lot of people, they're seeing their spouses, their kids, their immediate family, and maybe a neighbor when they're on a walk, and that's about it.
That is so true. Do you think that there is any sort of how in office politics, right? Mm-hmm. So this is so interesting because office politics, the first word is, office. So there's the person that shares all about their weekend, and then there's the person that really is tight-lipped and doesn't share anything. And there's thoughts both ways, I'm sure, of what you should do and what benefits you and what can work against you. But anything that you say can be held against you in an office space. So what should employees keep in mind when doing a Zoom call? Should they always show the background? Will they seem cold and standoffish if they choose, a Tiger King background or just to even blur it out?
I don't think there's anything cold and standoffish about a Tiger King background.
I think you're right.
But as far as the background, I think that's a personal choice. And I mean, it's one that should be made with caution and forethought. Anytime, especially if there are clients involved or, outside customers involved, there should be a level of professionalism. One of the things that we tell people all the time is that your people are the face of your brand. You are the face of your brand. And so I think that carries over into Zoom calls. It's something that you definitely want a layer of professionalism. Of course, read the room. We're a small team, and so, and we know each other. We're a team of 15. We're really close. We've all worked together for a lot of years. So, if one of us is going to throw up a Tiger King background in a company lunch or something, that's fine. But it's not something we'd probably do with a client. Not that we don't have fun, and not that we're not trying to still show that human element. I think that there's a balance. And I think the background of your house is probably fine, depending on what it is. If it's absolute clutter and hoarders back there, you probably want to put up a virtual background. If it's a clean wall with some artwork or even a cool background or anything like that, then I think that's fine. And as far as pets and kids and everything like that, I think at this point we all have to cut each other a little bit of slack. So I don't think anyone's really disturbed by an unprofessionalism of, a kid popping up asking about a homework assignment because they're homeschooling for the first time. We have a mute button and a camera off button that you can take care of something very quickly. So I think it's finding that balance, knowing your audience, and still wanting to put the best foot forward for your brand, while also being cognizant of the fact that we're all in a new normal and we're all adjusting. So if something does happen, hopefully it's nothing too crazy, but if something does happen, it's okay to say, hey, I'm really sorry. I need to just take a minute. Turn off your video, turn off your mic, make sure you turn off those things, and then
let's dive into that, shall we? Pro tip: don't take your phone to the bathroom when you're on a Zoom call. But that one's obvious, or we thought it was obvious. But the one lady, she didn't know it was obvious. Can we talk about some Zoom etiquette?
Absolutely. I think one of the main things is I advocate heavily for muting your mic if you're not speaking. Especially, this isn't such a big deal if it's 2 or 3 people, even 4 in a call. But when you get a full team wide, or, you're doing a planning session with someone, or you've got multiple people on this call, so many things get distracting. If you're typing notes, if you're shuffling paper, if you're breathing heavy, the breathing will just keep highlighting. So the
opening of a bag of chips.
Yes.
Aunt Pat. Right in the microphone.
Yes.
What are you doing?
So I think mute your mic is probably one of the best ones. If you're not, of course, you want to be where you can contribute. So be ready to unmute and talk there. Zoom etiquette also, I think it's really important for employers to have a chat with their employees about just some of the functionalities of Zoom. For example, if you put something in the chat, even if it's a private chat, that is transcribed into the entire Zoom minutes. So that's something that,
Oh, what?
Those side-off conversations.
Wait a minute. So like in the Zoom chat off to the right, you can chat with everybody. But if I chat with like privately, it ain't private?
It's not private. It is during the duration of the call, but anyone who transcribes the minutes can then see it. And I think that's an important thing for people to know.
Don't talk trash about your boss.
Yeah, or
save it for
other
a text
team members
message.
or anything, I mean, anything.
Oh my
that's
gosh.
something that I think setting expectations for, this is what it's going to be like on Zoom calls, if possible, and that can even be a company decision, if we're interfacing with a customer or a client, please use this as your Zoom background, or, please choose an area of your home that has whatever.
Yeah.
And that is hard because that is, that is your personal home and everything like that. So you may not have the option to have a room that looks like that. So maybe a Zoom background is a good idea. But setting expectations, I think, is a really good way to maintain that brand image. And
how can employers set expectations as far as, well, maybe that's not the way that I wanted to word it. Sometimes we're Zoomed out. Mm-hmm. Right? And we're like, wow, that could have been an email. And what at first was novel and fun and, hey, look, we're getting through this. Now we really are putting Captain Morgan in our coffee mugs, just calling it a day. So, is there like a certain time that Zoom meetings should be? And how do we know if if what needs to be talked about warrants a meeting, and how do we know it just could be an email?
Gotcha. I think that again is kind of a industry to industry decision, if not a company to company decision. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. For whatever reason, we used to be in meetings all day, every day, or in front of people all day, every day. But there's an added layer of fatigue that happens when you're prepping your own space and prepping, and video calls are a bit of a different beast to tackle. And so there is more mental prep, I think, for a Zoom call than even an in-person meeting. Because there's also the added layer of, you're having to work in an environment that for a lot of people isn't the norm. It's not what they're used to. And I mean, our brains, I think, just go into a little bit more overdrive when we're working from an area that isn't our norm. But I think that, excuse me.
Yeah, I think like an hour is good. I'm like really more
Absolutely.
than an hour. And I find, like all meetings, I find the meetings that are most interesting are the ones that you let me talk. So like, exactly. If you're going to just be well, you could have pre-recorded that and then I could have done dishes while watching you.
As a webinar or something. Yeah.
So maybe it's like we need to treat Zoom meetings more like in-person meetings where everyone gets to talk.
Absolutely. And I think the hour cap is a good point. And I think also managing your own personal expectations. Hopefully people work in a team where they feel comfortable saying these things. But, there are times where you're just Zoomed out, like you said, and maybe a phone call would work better, and you can call into Zoom. You can call in. And so, hopefully you're still, mentally with it and paying attention and everything. But if you're just tired of trying to go through all the extra steps, you can call in. And I think that's a really good option too. And I think that maybe employers just need to have a little bit of flexibility, and that's a team-to-team decision. But if you trust your team, I think that saying, either call in or see us on the video chat is a really, really good thing. And I think that that's something that is an option.
Yeah, if there's like a speaker and you don't need to interact over and over again, then you could go for a walk and while listening to the speaker, which that makes sense. So predictions for the rest of the year, for the rest of 2020, businesses, employees, employers, what kind of trends do you feel that we'll be seeing based on what you're experiencing with your clients?
Well, I think one of the big things is that people are tuning into the news probably more heavily than they have in a really long time. Some of those figures are upwards of 50% more, 60% more, depending on the media. And that's not a trend that I think is going to go away. People are really tuning in more to the news. I mean, they're glued to it. They want those updates. They want to know what's happening. And as a result, that makes PR super important. Getting good stories on the news. Contrary to what a lot of people think, that The news stations, I talk to them every day, and they are looking for good news stories. We've been able to get a lot of really, really good positive coverage for our clients during this time because they're looking for those stories of hope, those stories of community, those stories of those businesses that are going above and beyond. So if anyone has those stories, now is the time to really, really just put them out there. You have an active audience who is really tuned in and wants to know what's going on. And by that same token, advertising is huge right now. People still want to hear what businesses are doing. I have a couple of statistics here. Recent surveys show that 77% of people want to hear how a brand is helping in the new normal. Everyday life is different, so they want to know, how does your brand help? What is it? What need do you feel in this new normal? They also, 75% want to hear about the brand's efforts to face the situation. And I think that's going to be ongoing. People want to feel safe. They want to feel comfortable. They have a lot of needs right now. People are afraid. A lot are suffering financially. A lot are struggling mentally and emotionally. And so it's really, the public has these needs. And how do you fill these needs? And there's a lot of empathy that needs to go in those messages. And I think that empathy and that active listening is something that brands are going to need to really engage heavily on as we move forward throughout the year. I don't think that's something that's going to go away anytime soon.
That's kind of a good thing, though.
It is.
Empathy I hate to say empathy as a form of marketing, that really cheapens it, but empathy, considerate marketing.
Absolutely.
Considering the feeling of the customer as a person and not just a potential sale.
Absolutely. Well, and that's something that, everyone has an expertise, an area of expertise, and everyone has a need that they feel. And in that, they can find out how that fits. What do people need? Just really listening to that. And it adds that human element in there. And I think that's wonderful.
That is. And that's really how marketing should be.
It is. And, the cool part is this is something that we tell our clients year round. This is evergreen. This is find where you fit, find that message, and really talk to your consumers in a meaningful way. But it's just something that it's more imperative than ever. And I think that the other thing is that brands really need to be communicative right now. It's not the time to go dark. It's definitely a time to continue communicating, whatever that may be, and to really find the avenues that work best for your business. Video's key. Video is huge. It always has been, but especially in a new normal where people are feeling a little hesitant to have those in-person interactions, video, webinars, watch parties, anything virtual that you can offer, even in conjunction with anything in person post-quarantine is really important.
Makes people feel connected to the people behind the brand.
Absolutely. And that's something that's important all the time, but like I said, especially now, they need to see that human element. So
as we wrap up, can you tell, what does Sunny 505 do? What does a PR firm do for a company? You're a full service, which is important, but explain how that works and why it's important.
Absolutely. So we are a marketing, advertising, and public relations firm, which means we handle everything from marketing planning and research to development of those full year plans or quarter plans or month-by-month plans. We handle website development, app development, overall messaging, public relations strategy, social media, digital advertising, graphic design, traditional advertising, everything under the marketing umbrella. So what we really strive to do is take a look at what a company has done, what they're doing, what their goals are. And sometimes, those things are hashed out of our planning session.
Yeah.
But figuring out what those goals are, who their audience is, what those audience needs are, and then how to best reach them and communicate with them with messages that really resonate with them.
So instead of just throwing stuff on a wall and hoping it sticks, really making your moves smarter.
Absolutely, and more personalized too. It's not a one size fits all for anyone, and I think that that's a really important thing. Is it's taking a step back and looking at it from a really holistic approach of what will work, what hasn't worked in the past, what has worked in the past, what opportunities there are, even looking at a brand's strengths and weaknesses and really just dissecting all of that to figure out the best path forward that's going to be most effective for them.
That's really cool. And it's not here just locally. You can work with clients all over the U.S.?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So, but just U.S., not abroad.
We haven't done anything abroad, but
you could?
A lot of stuff that we do, we could work. We can work on from wherever. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really good to know because we've got a few listeners abroad. So yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. And I also want you to tell listeners quickly about your many, many books that you have and where they can find them, because I think it's so cool that you're writing and your wife is illustrating. It just is such a feel-good thing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I've been writing for over a decade now. So I have a variety of novels, general fiction. I have one that's kind of more action-based, a couple that are political novels, and then a couple of romance and some things in the works. I even have a paranormal novel in the works. But what I'm most excited about right now is the kids' books. We are working on, I think we have like 11 in the works where I'm writing them and my wife is illustrating them. She's an incredibly talented artist. So those are all in the works. And all of my stuff currently is on Amazon. But yeah, so hopefully soon we'll have some kids' books to add to the mix.
Oh, that's so exciting. Well, I will definitely link it. So if you're listening or you're watching and you want to know more, there will be an email out. There's a little bit in the episode description as well, but you can text REAL to 66866 to get the emails. And make sure you follow Jamie and share this episode with anyone share it with your boss. Thank you again for coming, girl. That was a wrap. Woo!
Absolutely. Thanks.